You're listening to The Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses, culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. You see your clients wasting valuable time improving client data month on month, quarter on quarter, and you know ultimately it's leading to lost revenue. Hello, this is Paul, and welcome to the Paul Higgins Show, episode 571. In today's podcast, I talk to Yash Tekriwal from Clay, and you will learn from Yash many things actually, but three things in particular. One is why, as a tech consultant, you need to know about Clay. The second is specific use cases on how you as a tech consultant, and that's predominantly a SaaS partner, so Salesforce, HubSpot, Monday, Zoho, etc. He gives lots of examples across that. And then the third thing is opportunities to drive more revenue for your clients, which I know we all need at this point in time. Yash is a former high school teacher, ed tech founder, data scientist, consultant, coach, and much more. And now he's channeling his broad background to the head of education for Clay. Clay is building the go-to-market systems for the future of modern go-to-market teams. And Yash gives a brilliant example of exactly what Clay is, so don't worry, we'll cover that. He's also bringing teams into the future of work requires a significant investment in user education and content, and Yash has been spearheading the company initiatives like Clay University and Clay cohorts to help scale learning for customers of all kinds at Clay. If you'd like to see Yash on video, I recommend you do. Go to Paul Higgins Mentoring, the YouTube channel. And now what I'll do is hand you over to Yash Tekriwal from clay.com. Fantastic to have you here, Yash.
Excited to be here, Paul. Happy to chat.
Yeah, well, look, I'm fairly new to the world of Clay, and I'm guessing if, you listening would be, you've probably heard of it. Hopefully you've heard of it, but many of you don't really know what it is. And today we're going to unveil that, and you're going to know a lot about Clay, but most importantly, how it can help you and your clients as you run your tech consulting business. But why don't we kick off, Yash, with who you see as ideal clients for Clay and what problems you love to solve for them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Paul. I would say there's two versions of that answer, right? There's the marketing easy answer, which is Clay is for anyone looking to grow their business. Our tagline is often, we help businesses grow. Yeah. But then I think the more specific answer and the relevant answer for folks listening to this podcast is we're really focused on the revenue side of the organization. How do you essentially cut the time that it takes to iterate on your revenue hypotheses down to almost zero so you can cycle faster, find results better, and then grow your company as quickly as possible?
Great. And from a revenue point of view, there's, revenue is volume times rate equals the revenue. I'm assuming you guys are more on the volume of, i.e., how do you get more clients rather than how do I improve the rate of those clients I've got?
I would actually say it's equal parts both. I think the volume side, to your point, a lot to do with data, so how many leads do you have? How many people are you going after? Clay is certainly a big part of that equation, but then rate is a multitude of different factors. That's how well am I closing? How good are my scripts? Am I doing good discovery? A lot of that also has to do with data, but then I think where Clay comes into the picture is removing all of the manual work and time and effort it takes to get that data so that you can deploy data faster, get hypotheses iterated on faster, experiment, repeat, go from there.
Yeah, and I'm sure you got, hundreds of analogies, but what are the analogies you like best when someone says, Clay, tell me, come on, Yash, I sort of get all the marketing spiel, but what's it mean in layman's? To a 7-year-old, what's Clay really mean?
Yeah, so I like the 7-year-old question, right? I love thinking about that. And I think the 7-year-old question, I would respond with, Clay is like the mega toy for all of your other toys. maybe you want to play with your race cars in the morning, and then you want to build a track for your race cars in the afternoon. And then you want to have a few other race cars on that track so you can see how they all compete. As a 7-year-old, you might be like, where am I going to do? Go to the store, ask my parents to buy something for every single one, set each one up myself, and then I get to play with it all. You want to focus on the play as a child. And so the benefit with Clay there is we're going to do all of the boring stuff for you automatically so you can focus on the pieces that matter most. So your race car, your track, your setup, your audience, everything else will connect it for you. And then you just get to put the cars down and watch them go.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. And certainly for me, I've been deep in watching videos. I've been talking to some fantastic partners of yours. It is, let's call it the outbound feature. Most of us are trying to generate more leads at the moment. Like if you're a Salesforce partner listening to this, it's tough out there. Salesforce lead volumes dropped. And I think what you've realized is you got to actually protect yourself, right? You just can't rely upon the brand owner all the time. You've got to have your own. And if you're at the other end where you're looking at selling or exiting the business, you're going to get a higher multiple if you've got some control over your own. And finding who's using what software, like is someone using Salesforce, NetSuite, whatever, how do I get my data list? Like Sales Navigator's okay, but it's not quite the same. You've got Sales Rocks, you've got Polo, you've got all these different tools and ways of sort of finding information. To me, like you said, it's the control room, right? The control room is how you're managing all of those things, including you might have, we'll use Monica, but you might have ChatGPT or Claude or whatever doing the writing, helping you write in the sequences. You've got all these disparate parts. To me, Clay's the glue that brings that all together. So that's my explanation. If I had to say to you, who's listening to Josh and I, what it is, like, tell me, what bits did I get right and what bits did I miss out of my explanation of what Clay is?
I actually think your explanation is great, Paul. I think part of the beauty of Clay is that it can be explained in so many different ways to so many different people. But what I love most about your explanation in particular is you're also getting at a different core part of what I think makes Clay really amazing, which is that we live in an era of unprecedented technological advance. We have AI that is capable of writing PhD level academic research papers. It bewilders me that there are still enterprise grade teams who have 30 to 40% of somebody's day job that is copy pasting data from one website into your CRM.
Yes.
That shouldn't exist. And that's a big part of what we're trying to solve with Clay.
Yeah, I think that is fantastic. And we'll have a link to a university where you can go learn more about Clay after this. And certainly, I've been watching the YouTube channel. Go and watch YouTube. You'll get a better understanding of it. But why don't we go to some practical examples? So let's talk about how you've seen some of the SaaS partners, or as I call them, tech consultants, get the benefits of Clay.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We could probably spend the next 2 hours just talking about the plethora of use cases, but I'll try and focus on some of the more important or more interesting ones. I think for the tech consultants that we partner with, we recently started our enterprise partners program focusing on helping people service companies more mid-market and upmarket. The focus, as you're probably not surprised by, is all about the CRM. Yes. I think the CRM has been the evolution of every company's central store of truth over the last 20 years. But despite being the central store of truth, not a single revenue leader I've talked to at a single large company is happy with the quality of data in their CRM. And I think we could also just spend an hour talking about the multiple reasons why CRMs tend to get messy, but it's effectively all down to the same issue in my head. It starts with too many cooks in the kitchen and too many kitchens as your company grows.
Yes.
And so you need something that helps create guidelines and rules for how you operate the different parts of your kitchen, who's cooking in what parts, and where it all gets served. And I think that's a big part of what Clay helps with. We could talk about auto refreshing your CRM data so that your accounts all have the right information, passing off the right data to your sales team exactly when they need it so that when they're hopping on calls, they're prepared with the background information they need about the buyers they're speaking with. We could even talk about round robining, lead scoring. I think actually the more upmarket you move, the more popular people talking about inbound tends to be versus outbound, because you already have people who know about you. The larger your company gets, filtering those people down and effectively allocating your team's time is one of the bigger struggles I've seen every large company face. Yes. And all of these problems are things that our technology solutions partners either one use themselves to grow their business. And then also beautifully too, implement for other companies to help them grow their businesses.
And from a practical point of view, let's say Salesforce, I've got my Salesforce CRM, and does Clay integrate through a third party? Is Clay, yeah, how does it sort of integrate to get the data into Salesforce and vice versa, use data out of Salesforce? As an example, it could be
Yeah.
any CRM.
So it's a great example. Let's use Salesforce because there's actually two examples with Salesforce. I'll talk about the first one and then we can talk a little bit about the second one. And I can even tell you why the second one came to be. The first one, which is what most people do, and this is widely applicable across all CRMs, is you just hook your CRM into Clay. So let's say I'm in Clay, similar to a Zapier or a Make. I would log into my Salesforce account, make sure all the authentication credentials are correct so I can access the right data that I need to. And let's take the specific example of every company I've met does this. Every quarter, your sales team has a list of named accounts and priority accounts that your team wants to go after.
Yes.
That list needs to be up to date. It is incredibly embarrassing if your sales team is reaching out to a former director of customer success at a company in Q4 because they got the data in Q3 and it's changed. Every company I've met, and this is part of where Clay comes in, has somewhere between a 1 to 3 week data refresh process at the beginning of every quarter because there's so many different parts where that data comes from. There's often duplicates in the CRM. And so it takes the revenue operations team a significant chunk of time to just go in, clean the data, make sure it's fresh, really, really double check it, and then pass off to the sales team. And so a Clay use case here would be I log into Clay, I connect the Salesforce account. Let's say I have that list of named accounts in a Salesforce report. I can import that Salesforce report directly into Clay. Now I've got that list of accounts directly in Clay. Let's say on the company level, I care about headcount, revenue, industry.
Yes.
So I automatically refresh those three variables using 80 plus different data providers that we obfuscate for you, and then get the most up-to-date data on those three accounts. Then I know for those named accounts, I care about, let's just imagine directors of customer success, directors of enterprise success, account management. I'm going to automatically look up the most senior titles I can, probably VPs and directors of those titles at mid-market companies, and then also automatically enrich the most up-to-date contact information for those people. Think emails, think phone numbers, think LinkedIn profiles. Now that I've got all of this data populating in Clay, what I'm going to do as my final step is take that original record it came from in Salesforce and write all of this brand new data back to the original record with two key components. One is I'm just going to include a last enriched by Clay date so that I know how fresh my data is.
Yes.
And then two is I'm going to put it in the right filters and views and lists back in Salesforce so that what I can start to do now is because I have that last enriched date and I already have the workflow built out for all these core data points. Let's say the company policy is we want to refresh this data monthly. I can now set up a Salesforce automation that essentially every day checks to see which accounts in the named accounts are out of the month or in the month, updates that list. And then as that list gets updated, it's going to come back to Clay, get enriched, sent back, date we'll use, and then fall out of the list. And then this is just an ongoing repetitive cycle. And now your RevOps team doesn't have to spend that 1 to 3 weeks every quarter enhancing that data.
Brilliant. So I got a couple of questions. So one is, you said, it could be 80 data points that it's sort of drawing from. Do you need to have a license for each of those 80 data points, or has Clay got a way that, you get some benefits of using Clay to get access to those 80 data points? How does that sort of work?
It's a great question. You don't need a subscription to any of our data providers in order to access any of our native ones. We built the software predicated on flexibility and also ease of use. So we have our own independent agreements with all of these providers. And so we pay them on your behalf every time you want to access one of those. The way that we make that work in product is we have a credit system. So when you buy a Clay plan today, you get a set number of credits. Let's say it's 50,000 credits. Yeah. 90% of the data points you want to get access to cost 1 to 2 credits in Clay. And then a handful of more expensive ones, like phone numbers is the best example, maybe cost an average of 10. And so
Right.
you don't need anything besides those credits to access any of our providers.
Okay, brilliant. Because I did Perplexity to come up with some sort of, what are the best shortfalls in clay? Try to sort of come up with the devil's advocate. And some people said that you could be paying more for the credits than what you're actually paying to get the data direct. Now, that was just something that Perplexity came up with. It's oh, don't shoot the messenger, but just tell me, is that right or is that a myth? Like, yeah, tell me how that sort of works.
It's entirely possible. I would say if you're going to point out flaws in clay, that would be in my top three. So Perplexity did a good job. Again, AI really at the forefront. I think it's really about trade offs. Are you optimizing for cost of every single technology provider you use, or are you optimizing for speed, deliverability, and team efficiency?
Yeah.
And that's not to say you can't do both. But I
Yes.
think when you're just getting started, you often want to at least optimize for deliverability and speed because time is money. That said, we're pretty open and transparent about all the places where a clay credit would be more money than what you would do directly going through a provider. And also, we're not shy about letting you connect your own APIs there. So you can still get the benefit of the clay software and tool while also getting the cheapest cost on the providers that you're using. So a
Yeah.
really classic example here, email validation.
Yes.
Email validation costs fractions of a cent to do by all the best providers.
Yes.
It's hard for us to, from our billing system, charge fractions of a credit. And so we put email validation as one, which means that on our best plans, you're paying 1.5 cents, let's say, for email validation, which is a 10x markup from what you could be paying on
Yeah.
zero bounce. That said, we also encourage people to go buy zero bounce plans directly
Yeah.
and then link their API key in Clay so that every time they run a zero bounce action in Clay, they're actually paying that original 0.15 cost, not the 1.5 cost.
Yeah, brilliant. The next question is around the updating of the data. You said, monthly, etc. Will it get to a point where if I change roles, it would automatically update the Salesforce instance, or is it only relied upon a point in time once a month?
So that's one of the other infinite use cases I was talking about earlier, Paul, right? We just actually released, we're really spending a lot of time this quarter and the next on what we call signals and intent data triggers. So what are all these dynamic data inputs that you pride your business on? Job changes is one of them. So we have a whole job changers source. You could link to a set of contacts so that when a contact from that list changes jobs, you fire off an automation automatically. That could be used for the named accounts thing I was just talking about. An even better example of that is all your existing customers and your main points of contacts at those customers or champions. Anytime one of those people leaves that company and goes somewhere new, you want to be in touch with that person within 1 to 3 days. You want to congratulate them. You want to thank them for their time at your company. And you also want to say, we would love to be an advocate to help you bring this tool that we know you love into your new company. And so you
Yeah.
can just imagine the use cases multiplying from there.
Brilliant. Just a reminder, we're talking to Yash from clay.com, episode 571. And just keep going back to the fact that if you use Zapier, you use Make, I think there's some of the best examples on how that then becomes the glue to, put all your integrations together. And, most of you, do that day in, day out. This is like that for customer or client data, right? So you can use this to help to pull all those resources and do that. Now, you might be thinking, well, this, it's endless. It sounds wonderful. Never heard of it, but I've got to dive into this. How does it normally play out with, say, the Salesforce partner, the HubSpot partner, etc., going and bringing this resource in-house to become a clay expert versus, I know you've got a partner in an expert directory using someone that's already fully up to speed. Just give me a bit of an indication of what you see as the logical path here. And I know there's never a black and white answer here, but what's your experience on this?
Yeah, I think we've both spent enough time around partners to know that what should be a very black and white question is often just infinite shades of gray. So the reality, right, like the immediate but realist answer is that we have clients and partners all across the spectrum of both combinations where there are enterprise clients of clays using enterprise plans that come with dedicated enterprise support from our team. while also contracting with a service partner in order to help accelerate or add development time to the mix. And what I'll talk about, I think what you're really getting at, Paul, is how do companies make the decision to go with a partner versus not? And I
Yes.
think there's really two big things here.
Yeah.
Number one is a company might be excited about Clay, but then intimidated about the learning curve, ramp up time, costs, etc. So if they want to decrease time to value, we always try and match them with a service partner who can get them running and can help teach them a lot faster. Now that's, I think, the short-term value prop that I think
Yes.
most partners go for. And it can lead to you getting large but still short contracts. But then eventually companies are going to bring something in-house, and then you're going to be looking for your next partners to work with. The thing that I have seen all of our and also just former partners and other companies I've been at be very successful in is being a leading expert on the general area of problems you're solving. So
Yes.
if now I'm not just a Clay expert, but because I'm also a Clay expert, I am a go to market expert, I
Yes.
am 10x more valuable to the
Yes.
partner that I'm working with
Yes.
because we've got Clay up and running, but it's also connected to, and this is part of the way that things work with Clay, every single other part of the org. We're talking about using it for our core data infrastructure. We should be thinking about planning to use it for inbound enrichment next quarter. Maybe on the roadmap is thinking about automated response of those inbound leads. Maybe we should get better at geographic territory mapping exercises, lead routing. There are within these large enterprises infinite use cases for these types of things. And I think positioning yourself as a partner, not only as a tools expert, but also a strategic expert, really helps you play the long game better with all of these people.
Yeah, yeah, great. And if I had some discussions with some Salesforce partners and HubSpot partners over the last week, and look, I was surprised. A lot of them haven't heard of Clay, and I think the great thing is that that's just a world of opportunity, right? Because I think you've given some really good use cases of where a client can use it, so your clients can use it. And ultimately, if you're working, with a client over 2 years, and your job is to get them a better business result, well, this is just going to be a fantastic addition to this, right? It's no different to, like we said, with Make or, other integrations. Think of it as that. It's additional tool. And then you've really got two options. One is you can reach out to the partner network, which is available. I think it's clay.com/experts. Is that right, Yash?
Correct. Yep. You
Yep.
nailed it.
So got that. And then the other thing is you may actually want to bring this more in-house because you're more RevOps. So you might be a HubSpot partner that does a lot more RevOps than maybe some of the other clouds. So if you're a Salesforce partner, then you can go and draw on this. But even if you're a Zoho or a Monday partner, I think there's options within Clay that you can tap into without having enterprise clients and without being, a large business yourself. So, to me, this is the Swiss Army knife of this data integration, automated or AI generated email or messages and enrichment of information. So it's got all of that. Now, we've just had a blackout in, oh, there we go. We've just had a
Movement
brief
oriented light.
blackout.
Whoops. We're good.
Got to pay
Yeah.
that power bill. I know you're earning lots of money there at Clay, but you got to make sure you pay the power bill. But yeah, so
Growing pains.
I
Yep.
think they're the sort of the two options that I think exist. But as I said, we're going to have a link to the university so that you can go, or you can get someone in your team to go and learn more about this. But it's I like to think that I'm abreast of all the tools out there and what's happening. And I think it's I think what 2 years you've been at Clay, Yash?
Almost two. Coming up on two. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. For you, how have you seen it as far as its brand awareness and its reach into to the business?
Yeah, it's a good question, Paul. The one quick note I'll make on everything you were mentioning, appreciating the kind words about Clay, is that if you're not a Salesforce or a HubSpot RevOps integrator, if you're using Zoho, let's say Fresh CRM, Monday.com, etc., you can still bring those into Clay using general webhooks or API calls. And that's where we have a lot of partners who use those actually in their implementations. Just a asterisk on that. To your question, though, around how have we seen Clay evolve over the last 2 years? I think there's the literal answer, which is we have grown 10x year over year since the time I've joined. So we went from a company of, I think we were between 8 to 10 people working out of a Williamsburg studio loft when I
Yeah.
joined to we've moved offices twice now, pushing 70 something folks, still very lean for our company size and scale, and no signs of slowing down anytime soon. I think the story behind that really pretty rosy picture of revenue and team growth is we have adapted and moved with the market to see where people really feel the pains the most and then constantly tried to accommodate them best. An origin part of Clay, and I think part of why many of the folks you might be talking to have never heard of us, is we really caught fire in the sales space to start. In
Yes.
fact, if you were talking to a bunch of AEs or SDRs, I would be willing to bet that a higher percentage of them would be like, I've seen that Clay thing on LinkedIn. And because that outbound automation and that use case for agencies early on, for outbound agencies, was so important, that's what we really nailed in our first year of growth in order to get the word spread about Clay. And I think as we've continued to grow and mature in the last year, we've seen that we still do outbound well, but there's also this much larger part of the pie. The real core infrastructure behind Clay is rev ops focused. I think
Yeah.
at smaller companies, you tend to have the rev ops job merged with the sales job, which is part of why you're seeing that kind of sales first word of mouth spread across the company. And so we're only now, I would say in the last 1 to 2 months, really trying to get the word spread in the RevOps communities themselves. Because it's this weird thing where at larger companies, we have salespeople bringing Clay to RevOps teams. And the salespeople are all like, I've seen this do magical things. You won't believe the videos people post on LinkedIn. And the RevOps teams are like, what is this Clay thing? And so that's slowly shifting. And that's part of why I wanted to hop on and chat with you. And it's part of why we're releasing so much more content around RevOps being a big part of our narrative.
Yeah, and look, I've been out of corporate now for 12 years, but remember back when I was at Coca-Cola, one of the biggest issues is that we had multiple data sets on the one customer, right? And we all know that we're trying to get that, one data set that then everyone uses. And I think Clay is a brilliant way of doing that. Like God, I remember as a rep back at Coca-Cola, like someone would spell street, ST versus the full name or whatever. Like we're always trying to clean our data. And like you said, we just wasted so much time in cleaning our data rather than being on the sales calls that we were best at. And, I marvel at just how far that this has come so we can all be more productive. And if you look at the combinations of the two worlds, right? You've got AI that's going to help you, improve your messaging and get your information. And one of the data points you can pull in is, any type of AI into Clay. And then you've got the data enrichment piece as well. It's like this is fantastic. Like for me as an old school salesperson that, used to have to see that managed manually, to think that it's just a 3 minute or it's an automated exercise now. It opens up a world of opportunity to be more productive, and I think that's the real benefit of this. Anything that that you have discussions on forums or podcasts that you think's relevant for my audience that we've missed, Yash?
It's a good question, Paul. I think probably the number one thing that I've been talking to partnerships folks about recently that I'm really interested in is there is this increasing move towards partnerships at larger companies. So for example, we have our own partners program. Salesforce and HubSpot obviously are two of the biggest names in partnerships.
Yes.
Gong has a partnerships program as well. There is, I think, going to be a continued large move towards this partnerships ecosystem because it's just the most effective way to scale a company. Why not work together with all of these power users and lovers of your product to grow much faster than you could just trying to hire people one by one on your own at a company? What I think is really, really interesting is the emergence of some of what I would call partnerships tech. Because I think partnerships itself is actually a relatively recent phenomena at these
Yes.
companies.
Yes.
I think we're still very early in the era of let's figure out how to co-sell on deals together. Let's figure out where you are best on these deals, where you sit among all of our other partners. And also just the incredible opportunities that there are for co-marketing, co-event hosting. I think really sinking your time as a partner into being extraordinarily helpful to the people in your ecosystem that might refer you deals and also might put you in contact with potential clients pays massive dividends.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I think comes to mind around this whole partnerships ecosystem is it's really, really helpful, again, to be somebody who not only does what they're told, but solves problems before they happen.
Yeah.
So, right, I think the difference I've noticed between a good and an amazing partner is I walk into a partnership conversation and I say, we need to do A, B, and C. Clean the CRM, add 30,000 more leads, make sure everyone is VP plus. A good partner says, I can do all of that. Here's how. An amazing partner says, we can do all of that, but I'm assuming that you want to do that because you're probably focusing on this and this. Maybe you're going after these types of accounts in this year and this quarter. Have you considered also adding a website intent signals and data strategy part of this entire approach? Why are we not doing that? Give me a better understanding of how we're prioritizing things here. Because almost always the answer to questions like that is, hadn't thought of it. It's just an incredibly complex world, and we're prioritizing what we think needs to happen the most. But when you as a partner can help your clients not only improve their processes, but improve their strategies and refine their growth thinking, no one's ever going to outcompete you.
Spot on. And that's why I could have called this audience SaaS partners, right? But
Right.
ultimately tech consultant, because you are consulting on their whole of business. And as you know, you've heard the analogy a million times, people don't want to know what type of drill. It's the whole that's most important. You know, I
Right.
think you're right. Clay is a brilliant glue that helps bring this together, but it's for a higher purpose and a higher need. And it's for things that people haven't even thought of that's possible. And that's why we brought you on the show today. And I really hope that you listening, episode 571, has got a new appreciation of something that you haven't heard of and your clients haven't heard of. So that's going to be a brilliant value add to them to help you ultimately get a better result. But what we're going to do now is just pause, thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back for the rapid fire.
Thanks, Paul.
Ever spotted your dream client on LinkedIn only to find yourself bogged down in tedious data transfer at the expense of building that critical relationship? Say goodbye to manual tasks and hello to efficiency with Surfy, S-U-R-F-E. Surfy transforms you from a virtual assistant into a sales pro by seamlessly capturing, syncing, and enriching contacts from LinkedIn into your preferred sales platform, be it Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Copper, or even Google Sheets, all in one single click. Imagine reclaiming those precious hours spent on data entry and redirecting them towards nurturing valuable connections and closing deals, which we all love to do. With Surfy, it's not just a dream, it's your new reality. Ready to invest your sales time where it truly matters? Try Surfy today by visiting our resource page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/resources and clicking on Surfy. Elevate your sales game with Surfy because your success starts after the click. So, Yash, ready for the rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right, 4 questions, 4 quick responses. So the first one, what are some of the daily habits that help you or partnership within Clay?
I think biggest daily habit I've been a proponent of for a long time is maximal use of your computer. I'm a big productivity hacks enthusiast. I love tools like Raycast, Hyperkey, CleanShot. It helps me communicate quicker, faster, and with more people in less time.
Brilliant. The second is, where do you go to find out more information?
Great question. I subscribe to a bunch of different newsletters that I think are really wonderful. The top ones that come to mind are Ben's Bites for anyone who's a technology enthusiast or an AI enthusiast. He does an incredible job of recapping everything. I also really love Farnham Street. And then I love the Every subscription. Those 3 are always top of my information digest.
Fantastic. And if I could grant you one wish, your role there at Clay, what would it be?
More hours in the day. I think there's so much exciting stuff to do here that I often can't find enough time to do it all.
And the last but not least is, what do you know now after being 2 years within Clay that you wish you had have known earlier?
It's a good question. And the one that immediately comes to mind for me is just knowing how fast your job and the company will change. I think something we talked about as a company at the last retreat that really struck a chord with me is that the Clay I joined back in January of 2023 died I would say probably in April of 2023, and then became a whole different company with the revenue and the growth that we were seeing. It also died again in September. And then it died again the following February, and then it died again the following September. And I think having the knowledge that you need to mourn what the company once was and the things you loved about it, while also celebrating the things that the company now is and adapting to it, is incredibly important. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself ruminating on, oh, why am I frustrated over things that have changed? But I know we're doing well, but I miss these other things. And there's this process of understanding, appreciating, and letting go that I think is really important.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, it's been fantastic having you on. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And what we've also got is a special link. If you go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/clay, you'll be able to have access to that university. And in particular, it's focused on CRM, which I know you're updating at the moment. This is coming out in the end of October in 2024. So it depends on when you're listening to this. It should be updated by then. But yeah, look, it's for me, it's been brilliant understanding more about clay, and it's also been great getting someone like you to come on and explain it for others to help the growth, but most importantly, get results for you as a tech consultant. So thanks for coming on today, Yash.
Appreciate you having me, Paul. Really enjoyed the conversation.
That was a great interview with Yash, and look, clay is a fantastic product, and Yash did a great job in explaining why you should learn more about it, whether it's you tapping into their partner network for your clients or whether you becoming a partner yourself. Reach out to Yash on LinkedIn and let him know that you saw him on the podcast or you heard him on the podcast, and thank him and ask him some questions, right? As you can tell, he's a very knowledgeable and open guy. Your peers will benefit from this, so why not share it with them, right? If you haven't heard of clay, probably means that your peers haven't, so please put it in their hands. And there's nothing worse than keeping a secret from your peers. You can watch the episode, as I said, on the YouTube channel, Paul Higgins Mentoring. And if you like what you see there, please subscribe. And you can also get the link to the university, as Yash said, paulhigginsmentoring.com/clay. And all of those links will be in the show notes. So see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show. Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.